All right, welcome to Talkin' Investing. I'm Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, I want to talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. Bitcoin is having a pullback, so I want to go through what's going on. I'm going to look at some potential price targets, and I also want to talk about something that's going on with the Bitcoin miners that I think people might be missing. So just a quick update today. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, we talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin miners all the time. If you can do us a big favor, we're going for 800 likes on this video. If you enjoy this content, if you could smash the like button, we really appreciate it. Let's go through what's going on with Bitcoin. We are having a big move to the downside. I'm sensing a lot of people panicking, and I just want to go through my thoughts on this. We'll take a look at some charts, why I think this is happening, and what might come next. I want to start with Bitcoin on the 15-minute time frame. I just want to show you how quickly this has moved to the downside. Just yesterday, less than 24 hours ago, you can see here we tested $69,000, which was our previous all-time high. So as of the time of making this video, a couple of hours ago, we did get down under 63,000 to about 62,500. That's a big move to the downside in less than 1 day. And when we go to the 1 day time frame, we're going to see that this is a part of a larger move to the downside over the last several days. So there's a couple of reasons that I think that this is happening. I want to go through the first one, and this is the one a lot of people I know are out there talking about. I think this is one of the reasons. I'm not sure it's the biggest reason. This is a chart of what was the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust and is now the Grayscale Bitcoin Spot ETF. So this is a measure of their daily outflow. You'll see every single day since this became a spot ETF, there has been outflows. We know this. In the beginning, there was this grouping of large outflows, averaging $500 million a day. That backed way off for a big period of time. The courts gave approval to Genesis on February 14th to sell their Grayscale shares. Genesis held $1.6 billion in the Grayscale Trust, so we knew there was big outflows coming. But if you look at this, yesterday was actually the largest daily outflow in the history of the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, now Spot ETF. There have been several other days that have been big outflows here. So something is going on. We did have this almost 1 month period where this decelerated and it seemed like this was tapering off, and now it has re-accelerated. So if I look at the Grayscale Trust, you're going to see they have 378,000 Bitcoin left. At the time this converted to the spot ETF, they had over 620,000 Bitcoin. So you can see they have moved through a significant portion of their Bitcoin. So I did not expect that this was going to go all the way to zero, and I still don't expect that. There have been over 250,000 Bitcoin sold out of the Grayscale Trust since it turned into a spot ETF. So with yesterday's massive outflows, I want to take a look at how that fits into the big picture of what went on yesterday with the spot ETFs. So if we look at this chart, this is basically the last 2.5 weeks. The net inflows for the spot ETFs has been massive over the last couple of weeks. It's been averaging about $500 million a day. It did peak last Tuesday, 1 week ago, with over $1 billion of inflow in 1 day. That was the all-time record for the spot ETFs. The very next day, there was $683 million of inflows. That was the second best day in the history of the ETFs. It has then tapered off a little. And now yesterday, Monday, there was actually outflows. And of course, that is mainly due to the fact there was $642 million that came out of Grayscale. So you'll see again, every single day with Grayscale is red. BlackRock had big inflows, almost $500 million, $451 million. So that made up for a lot of that. But you'll see almost all of the other ETFs yesterday had a very, very slow day. There's really no telling on any one day. These days happen. Some days across the board, there's big inflows. Some days it's concentrated in one spot ETF or the other. A lot of this has to do with what these firms are doing with their own clients, as well as any advertising campaigns or promotions they may be running. But yesterday was the first time in several weeks we've had an outflow, and we've really only had 3 outflows in the last month and a half. So this has been a main source of the big push up to an all-time high in Bitcoin. So one of the reasons we've had a big drop off is this net outflow yesterday in the spot ETFs, which is in large part, if not mainly, due to the fact that Grayscale had its worst day ever. There's actually 2 other things going on here. So I want to look at a couple of other charts to show why I think this is having a pullback and where it might go to. Okay, this is a chart that I made on March 13th, so a few days ago. Basically, from January 23rd through March 13th, that is 50 days. Bitcoin was up in that 50 days 91%. So that is almost a double in 51 days. So there are an awful lot of people that are short-term traders that made a massive amount of money in this run-up. So I do believe with this 91% move to the upside in less than 2 months, there's also one of the factors that's happening here is there is a lot of profit taking. It's not the wallets that have been holding for a long time. It's also not the larger wallets. What it appears to be is newer wallets with less amount of Bitcoin are getting in and out and taking some profits. So that makes a lot of sense to me. That trend may continue. I'm not saying that's over, right? There was an awful lot of profit made here, so there may be more of this ahead. The third thing I want to look at is just a couple of the technicals. And then we're going to get to the one-day chart, and I'm going to give you some of my potential price targets as to where this may end and where it may turn around. And then I want to talk about what's going on with the Bitcoin miners, because something a little bit different is happening right now, and I just want to take a look at that as well. This is the RSI on the one-day time frame for Bitcoin. So you're going to see, we've been talking about this for a long time. Back on February 9th, this got into overbought territory, which is over 70, other than a few days in the middle. From February 9th all the way until March 14th, so over 1 full month, we were in an overbought territory. You'll see we kind of had a double top here in the high 80s, around 87 or 88. So we were very overbought. However, the massive inflows into the Bitcoin spot ETFs were allowing us to continue this run. So we did get very overheated. We talked about this at length on the channel. Just from a technical standpoint, we are long overdue for some type of pullback. We always talk on this channel that a 20% pullback is pretty much standard operating procedure for Bitcoin. We've had 4 20% pullbacks in the last basically 15 months. And being overheated for this period of time, it did seem like we were due for some type of pullback. So you can see now in the middle of the day today, we are actually for the first time in several months going all the way back to late January. At the moment, we're actually under 50 on the daily RSI. Now, this does not lock in until the daily candle closes, so we will see if Bitcoin holds above that 50 and finds some support at 50 on the daily RSI. If not, there could potentially be a little bit more room to the downside. It's worth noting you have to go all the way back to September of 2023 for Bitcoin to have gotten below 35 on the daily RSI. So it hasn't had a full reset in 6 months, basically. I'm not expecting it to get down to 30 or below. It can get even below 30, but we are in a very bullish time for Bitcoin right now. I do think we are still inside of a bull trend. We are having a pullback, so I don't expect a reset back to 30, but anything's possible. So I think one of the key things I'll be looking at over the next few days is, do we hold around 50, bounce off of that and head back up, or are we going to go lower, maybe down to 40 or 35 before we hit a bottom and start to move back up? In addition to that, if we take a look at the Fear and Greed Index, this is the 3-month time frame. We did get up on March 5th, we got to 90, and then on March 14th, we got to 88. So that is very high. That's extreme fear. So these are just a few of the technical indicators that were kind of screaming at us that, maybe we were due for one of these 10 to 20% pullbacks. I want to take a quick time out before I get to the Bitcoin one-day chart and look at some potential price targets in the short term to the downside. And again, I will say at this time, I am still very bullish. I think this is a short-term pullback. Obviously this is not financial advice. Only time will tell. But to me, this looks like more like an overdue short-term pullback, so we will look at some potential price targets, but I do still think, in my opinion, we are inside of and still early into what I think is most of the bull market left ahead. I want to take a look at the Bitcoin miner big board. You're going to see on this big board, as I'm making this video, Bitcoin's down about 7% on the day. If you look at the Bitcoin miners, there are a couple that are doing worse than that, but for the most part, the Bitcoin miners are performing on par with Bitcoin. On Friday, the Bitcoin miners outperformed Bitcoin. Yesterday, on Monday, the Bitcoin miners outperformed Bitcoin again. And now today, on a big down day, a lot of the Bitcoin miners are doing so far better than Bitcoin. There are a few exceptions. Cleanspark's down 11.6%. Now, Cleanspark, we've been saying for several months on this channel, Cleanspark has run out so far ahead of the field. It's 60 or 70 or 80% ahead of almost all the rest of the Bitcoin miners in its price action over the last 60 days. So it's no surprise to me that we're getting a little bigger pullback there. But if you look at the rest of them, Marathon, which is the largest by market cap, Marathon's down 8% while Bitcoin's down 7%. Riot's down 7%. most of the rest of the Bitcoin miners are outperforming Bitcoin. At this point in the day, Bitfarms down 4%, Cypher 4.8%, Iris Energy's down 5.5%, Hut's down 6%, Hive is down 5%, Core Scientific's down 3%, Bit Digital's down 3.9%. So a lot of those are equal to, and most of those are less than what Bitcoin is down on the day. So this could be, if this trend continues to the end of the day, this could be the third day in a row that the Bitcoin miners relative to Bitcoin are performing just fine. Now, I know this is a big down day still for the Bitcoin miners, right? Obviously, these are red numbers. We are red across the board with the Bitcoin miners, but it is encouraging. Typically, over the last several months, on a day where Bitcoin was down like this, the Bitcoin miners would be down significantly more than this. So if this can hold, this will be the third day in a row. And I only bring this up because we're in about a 12-month period where the Bitcoin miners have been lagging Bitcoin in a massive way. So it's possible we're in a little 3-day pocket here where that is reversing. So I'm looking at sometime over the next 2 to 3 weeks for that trend to end and for the Bitcoin miners to start to have their run. So I don't know, is this some early signs that maybe we're getting close to that? Okay, lastly, let's just take a look at the Bitcoin one-day chart. You're gonna see I've drawn a box here. The top of this box is just over $59,000. That would represent a 20% pullback from our recent high, which is actually our new all-time high for Bitcoin. And that came in on March 14th at $73,835. So a full 20% pullback, again, which is typical. We've had 4 of those in the last 15 months inside of a very big bull market over that same period of time. So this is a very typical pullback for Bitcoin. So 59,000 would be the top of that range. That would be a full 20% pullback. And I actually drew a box down to about 55,000. That would be a 25% pullback. That's actually a little bit more than we've been having over the course of the last year. But of course, you know, that is still on the table. In previous bull markets, the pullbacks have been more like 25 to 30%. That has not been the case for the last 15 months, but I'd like to at least leave that on the table as a possibility. I've also drawn a few other lines of support. We are currently under one of them right now. There's a little bit of support here, somewhere around 63,600. As I'm making this, we are below that. We're at 62,600 at the moment. There's another pretty weak line of support at around 61,000, just above 61,000. So it's possible we'll catch ourselves there. But in any event, all of these from where we are right now, this first line of support would be around another 2.5% move to the downside. If we get this full 20% move to the downside, that would be just about 6% more to the downside from where we are right now. And then obviously, if we go all the way to 25%, you know, that's going to be 11 or 12% pullback from where we are right now. So I do think all these things are on the table, but I do want to reiterate, I think this is extremely normal price activity. We were very, very overbought. None of these pullbacks would signal a reversal in the trend, and the trend for the last 15 or 16 months has been up and has been bullish. So if we do hit any of the price targets I just talked about, I still think that keeps us in our bullish trend. So if we start to test anywhere from 52 to 48,000, then I would start to take a look and start to be worried, are we in a reversal? So for me, I still think we're very early in this bull cycle. So these types of pullbacks for me, I will probably utilize as a buying opportunity, although I will be very cautious as we potentially have up to a 20 to 25% pullback. This is a very, very normal thing inside of a bull market. This is a part of our overall theme talking about the volatility of Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. So for quite some time, we've been experiencing the upside of that volatility, and you know, that obviously feels good. At the moment, we're experiencing the downside of that volatility, and I don't know that we're done yet. Again, I've just given you a few price targets of where I think it's quite possible we could go over the next couple of days, or maybe even the next couple of weeks. It's possible we tread a little bit sideways and have a little bit of consolidation here. Again, to wrap up longer term, I am very bullish. I do think we're only at the beginning of price discovery. We just now came back to our all-time high. So essentially, we've kind of tested our all-time high. We're getting rejected a little bit here the first time around. So it may take 1 or 2 more times before we get that next big move to the upside. So we'll have to wait and see. In the meantime, be very careful, understand the volatility involved in Bitcoin and of course in the Bitcoin miners as well. I just wanted to bring you guys a quick update. So that's all I have for you today. Thanks so much. If you are a member, I will see you on the members only live stream tonight. Don't forget to smash the like button, and thanks again for watching.